Okay, let's do the whole year. The whole year. What's the point of this whole year? What have we learned? I'm going to give you a review of the whole year. Put it all together, see where it takes us. Okay? Semester 1. Self-cultivation. What did we discuss? We discussed the difference between fixed and the growth mindset. Feel as though you understand that any better? How many of you feel as though that you have fixed mindsets? How many of you feel as though you have growth mindsets? Raise your hand if you feel as though you have a growth mindset. Raise your hand high. Raise your hand high if you feel as though you have a fixed mindset. You are a ballsy young man. Good for you. And you're working through it, right? And something's going to happen to you very soon, I hope. Good. Fixed mindset. The idea, belief that my abilities are fixed and cannot change. Growth mindset. The belief that my abilities are not fixed, that they can change. But more important than that, I hope you can see that we must bring our, if you will, higher order abilities into existence. Our abilities do not exist until they exist. We are not born with mathematical ability. Actually, we are in fact born with some mathematical abilities, but they are very primitive. Even newborn babies can tell the difference between 2 dots on a screen and 1 dot on a screen, or 3 dots on a screen and 2 dots on a screen. Those are the first abilities. So that fledgling little tiny skill ability is born, you're born with that. But that doesn't mean you have the rest of it. The rest of it must develop. And how do you develop those abilities, those skills? You must actively bring them into existence through action, through action. Through action, and not simply action, but through action with other people. Through action with other people, through action with more accomplished people. You actually build, create, construct your abilities, skills slowly over time. Now, people with a fixed mindset believe I am my fixed abilities. And if I believe that I am my fixed abilities, then my self-concept, my sense of self-worth, my sense of self-esteem, my sense of being a valuable, worthy individual comes from my sense of my abilities, whether I have high ability or low ability, whether I'm smart or dumb. And then therefore I go about the task of proving to myself and proving to other people that I'm smart, that I have high abilities. That's the fixed mindset. If I am my fixed abilities, and if I only have abilities that do not change and that are fixed, and I cannot do otherwise, then I'm constantly going to be concerned about whether or not I measure up, whether or not my abilities are high or low. And so I go out into the world, and if I fail at something, that means I don't have natural fixed ability. And if I don't have natural fixed ability, that means I'm stupid. And if that means I'm stupid, that means my self-esteem goes down. I am not a worthy person. Fixed mindset. As a result, in order to prove to myself and to prove to other people that I have high abilities, I will simply avoid difficult things to do. I'll avoid difficult tasks because I might fail at them. And if I fail at them, that means I'm stupid and bad and dumb. Failure threatens my self-esteem. Failure threatens my sense of self-worth. I'll avoid difficult things. I'm not going to take math because I'm not good at math. Well, what will happen if I take math? I might do poorly. I might get a bad grade or some such thing, which would make me look stupid. Of course, the reason to take math is if you don't know math. If I'm not good at math, that's the exact reason to take math. But that's a growth mindset conception. Or in the fixed mindset, if I do poorly at something, again, that means I don't have the ability. And since I don't want to face that, that's too difficult for me to face because it causes a decrement in my self-esteem. Well, what happens? I make excuses. Oh, there's a reason why that didn't happen. The sun was in my eyes. The dog ate my homework. The teacher's bad. This is stupid anyway. This is not anything that I want to have to do or that I think is worthwhile. I'm not interested in this. If I were interested in it, I'd do better. All of those things happen if I'm in the fixed mindset. Growth mindset is completely different. I hope that you can see by now. Growth mindset. If my abilities are not fixed, if I must actively bring them into existence by actively building, creating, and constructing them, then I must put in effort in order to make my abilities, and I must seek help in order to make my abilities, and I'm going to make my abilities slowly over time, gradually. And what that means is that when I fail, my self-esteem is not devastated because I am not my abilities. And I certainly am not my fixed abilities because I don't have fixed abilities. I am not any fixed self. I am who I am becoming. I'm always looking to the future. I'm always looking to get a little bit better today than I was yesterday. I'm always interested in self-cultivation, cultivating a self. Fixed mindset stops me from cultivating a self because I'm too afraid to move out of my comfort zone. The growth mindset allows me to cultivate myself because it says when I fail at something, that simply means I haven't built the skill or the ability yet, which means I have to put in more effort, get more help, and then little by little, I'm going to get better. I will never be the person that I want to be or that I think is the perfect person to be because no one is perfect. I cannot be perfect. So as I develop slowly over time, and if I want to become this here, if this is my goal, this is the goal of perfection of who I want to be, I realize I can never attain that. All I can do is take the next step toward it. And when I take the next step, I can be really happy. I can be happy because I reflect upon where I am and I say, look where I've been. Look where I came from. Look how far I've come. I don't compare myself to you. I compare myself to my prior self. And I realize, look how far I've come. I should feel happy about that. Where do I want to go? I want to go here and never get there. All I can do is a little step, little step, little step, little step, little step. And as I make those little steps, with each little step, I can feel good about myself. I'm also humble because I realize nobody's perfect. And I'm never going to be perfect. I'm never going to be the perfect version of who I want to become. But I can be happy with who I am as long as I continue to develop, because I am who I am becoming. I am not some fixed self. Fixed mindset, growth mindset. Questions, comments, anything at all? Yes.
I actually saw like a video on what you just talked about, like with that, like he was the actor Matthew McConaughey. He's saying he can never attain like who he wants to be. He's always looking up to himself, like he was like 10 years later. And that's just quick way.
So Matthew McConaughey could never be perfect. So he looks at who I was 10 years ago and look at how much I've grown. And I look at you, say, and you're better than me. Now, I can look at you and I can feel really bad because you're better than me. Okay, you're here and I'm here. Or I could look at you and I could say, he inspires me. You got it? That's his thing. That's his thing. I'm glad he's here. I'm glad for him. I'd like to be like him. He inspires me. Rather than I feel bad because you're better than me or you're higher than me, or I compare myself to you. It's very hard not to compare, especially on social media. You go to social media, you think that the person's got this perfect life and everything and all the rest of it. Well, they all the same insecurities as all of us have, but we project onto the other that they're doing this great thing. Even if they are, they could be an inspiration for us. We don't have to feel bad about ourselves and we don't have to try to take them down. We can identify with their accomplishment and be like Matthew McConaughey. Good. So Dweck helps us with the growth mindset, work towards self-cultivation. She tells us we're not any fixed something or other. We can develop into something else. Good stuff, except there's a problem, I say. And the problem is Dweck only brings us so far. She tells us that we should grow. She tells us how we should grow through effort, through help, incrementally. But she doesn't tell us what's worth growing toward. She doesn't tell us what's worth growing toward. Her theory is very general. Whatever you are growing toward, this is how you should do it. But how are you to develop a sense of what's worth growing toward? Do you simply accept what anybody tells you? You simply accept what everybody tells you that's worthy? Should you simply accept the conventional wisdom? Should you do what everybody else does? Do you simply go to college, for example, because your mom and dad told you to do that because that's a good thing? Maybe that is a good thing. Maybe it's not a good thing. What makes something good? What makes something worthwhile? And this is what brings us to Aristotle. Okay? Aristotle, in the Nicomachean Ethics, tells us how to approach the task of figuring out what's worth growing toward. What type of self do you want to cultivate? And he says, just like Dweck, that anything we do, any skill that we develop, comes from action. If you want to develop excellence in something, you must do it. You don't start off with ability. You have to create the ability. If you want to be an excellent athlete, an excellent runner, you need to build running skills by running. If you want to be an excellent teacher, you build teaching skills by teaching. If you want to be an excellent piano player, you build piano skills by playing the piano. So, just like Dweck, he says, for any act, we engage in some act. We're always engaging in some act for the sake of something. For the sake of something, for the sake of some goal. So we kick the ball into the net. Why do we kick? Why do we kick? We kick to get the ball into the net. Which raises the question, why do we want to get the ball into the net? Why do we want to get the ball into the net? To score a point. Why do we want to score a point? We want to score a point to win the game. Why do we want to win the game? We want to win the game so that we can win the championship. Why do we want to win the championship? Oh, to get status. Why do we want to get status? It makes us feel good and superior to somebody else. And maybe it'll help me get a job or get money or get a trophy or some such thing. And why do we want that? Well, we think that's going to make us happy, if you will. What's worth growing toward? Aristotle says, I think there's something called a telos, the grand goal of all goals, the supreme goal of all goals. And he asks, is there a goal, telos, that we want just for itself and for the sake of which we do everything else? In other words, is there a goal that we want just for itself? We don't want to kick the ball just for itself. We kick the ball for a reason, for the sake of something else. We kick the ball in order to get it into the net. And we kick the ball, we want to get it into the net for the sake of scoring. We want to score for the sake of winning, and we want to win for the sake of winning the championship. And we want to win the championship so that we have status and everybody thinks we're great. But is there a goal that we want not for something else, but all for itself? And that we don't want anything more than that? And is the reason why we do all these things? He says, yes, the telos is happiness. His word is eudaimonia, which means well-being, flourishing. It's not the same as happiness. It's something more than that. A flourishing sense of happiness, a sense of contentment, a sense of living a good life. He says, we want to be happy. And why do we want to be happy? Not for some other reason. We want to be happy because we want to be happy. And everything that we do in order to become happy. He says, that's the telos. But here's the rub. Here's the rub. The rub is this going to make you happy? Is this going to make you happy? This. Will you be happy by winning and winning the championship and getting status and power and money or what have you? What brings happiness? And his point is, these things might bring you happiness, but only for a minute and a half. Okay? I'm going to be so happy when I graduate high school. And were you happy when you graduated high school? You bet you were. How long did it last? Very long. Now you got this other thing. I'm going to go to college. I'll be so happy when I get admitted into college. When you were admitted into college, were you happy? Yes. But then you actually went to college. And then what's this? That happiness didn't last too long. Okay. And then you're in college. I'll be happy when, I'm not sure what the answer is, but maybe the answer is when I graduate college, I'll be happy. Well, then the answer will be when I get the job, I'll be happy. There's always something else that I'll be happy once I get. But the problem is that these things are not lasting. What brings happiness? What brings eudaimonia? What brings long-lasting happiness? If you think it's power or status or money, if you think it's money, you're going to live an empty life, he says, because the money is only going to bring you so far. you're going to get bored quick living on the beach. If you think that what's going to bring happiness is status, you're in big trouble. Because at that point, what determines my status? Not me, you. I'm at the mercy of you. I'm at the mercy of your esteem. Okay, I'm only going to be able to feel good and happy if I have status, but you're the one that determines whether I have status. If I'm the football player or the greatest, this or that or the other thing, and there's always something and somebody better. Be unhappy. You do that for virtually many of the goals that we typically have. So what brings happiness, says Aristotle? And he says, well, because of the way he defines happiness as flourishing, well-being, a good life, happiness is not a happy feeling. Happiness is the idea that I'm able to look at myself and look at my life and say, this is good. This is good. This is virtuous. This is good, which is a moral thing. He says that what brings happiness is virtue, cultivating virtue or cultivating moral goodness. What does that mean? Cultivating virtue, cultivating moral goodness. Virtue is something that we want that is good in and of itself. And again, Aristotle talks about how any virtue is flanked by two vices. Courage is a virtue. Courage is persevering through difficulty despite fear. And you can have too little courage and too much courage. Too little courage, you're cowardly. Too much courage, you're foolish. You're foolhardy. You have too much courage. Oh, I could do anything. I jump off a roof. That's not so great. That's foolish. If I don't have enough courage, I don't face my battles. You need moderate amount of courage. So courage. And if I act courageously in whatever I do, if I find the virtues, if I try to live a life of virtue, of identifying what is good, and then trying to define my life, myself, my actions in terms of that, that is the source of what? Self-cultivation. Aristotle, we need him, because he tells us what's worth growing toward. He doesn't tell us in specific, although his virtues do say something in specific. But what he's saying, I would suggest to you, is that you want to be happy, you got to reflect upon why you're doing what you're doing. You want to be happy, you got to reflect upon why you're doing what you're doing. So, you want to be happy, you're doing your homework, and it's hard, and you'd rather not do it, and it seems stupid, and it's meaningless, and it's boring, and I don't like doing it, so I put it off and I procrastinate. Okay, and I don't like doing this stuff, and I'm gonna go play, and I'm gonna hang out with my friends, or I'm gonna go play a video game or play football. And I do that, and I'm happy when I'm doing that, but then I realize, no, something's wrong here. I'm not doing very well. And then maybe I begin to do my work, and I begin little by little to tackle the very difficult challenge of building who I am and building my skills, say through my work. And then I begin to have success. And as I begin to have success, I see that it is hard. I am doing something very difficult, yet I've made some success. It is good. I am pursuing something that is good. Doesn't mean it's easy. Through that difficulty, I've created something good. Now what happens? I feel good about myself. Not because I played football, not because somebody liked me, but because I did something that I am able to see as good or morally good, and I'm moving in that direction. You've done that. Okay? You've done that. You're in the direction of doing that, which is the most important thing, in my opinion. Period. Got it? Dweck. Self-cultivation through growth, Aristotle. Find the good. Find what's good. So, what's next? Well, let's continue on with this business of virtue and good. Let's expand that a little bit. Let's expand that a little bit. What makes something good, virtuous? Well, you've got meaning, purpose, moral goodness. There's a little idea map on the board. Nietzsche, through Frankl. Nietzsche. He or she who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. Frankl creates meaning in a death camp in Nazi Germany. You read it. Frankl creates meaning in a death camp in Nazi Germany when others die. In the most horrific, dehumanizing conditions possible, he was able to find a way to create some sort of meaning, some sort of purpose. He or she who has a why to live for, a purpose, can endure almost anyhow. Well, what is that why? What is that why? You've got to have a purpose, he's saying. Well, look to virtues. Look to the goodness. Identify that which is good in your life, and it will give you meaning. Find a purpose. Find a purpose in something virtuous, and it will give your life meaning. And then you can be happy in the now. You can even be happy without romanticizing the horrors of a concentration camp or a death camp. You can find glimmers, glimpses, fleeting moments of happiness, quote unquote, but certainly some form of meaning in even through pain and suffering. Even through pain and suffering. And this is what all the great religions are about. How do you deal with pain and suffering? All religions have some notion about what it is and how it is that we move through pain and suffering. For Buddhism, it's not attachment or mindfulness. Okay. For Christianity, it's perhaps atoning for sins or that sort of thing. Redemption, etc. Don't have to be religious to do that, though. You don't have to be religious to look for moral, to find a purpose in something that has morally good, that will give your life meaning, and that you can move, that becomes your telos, and then you can move toward that, knowing you'll never get it, but knowing that this is why I'm doing the thing I'm doing. And no matter how much I don't live up to the perfect, I've come this far, and now that is good. I am happy in the moment. Frankl, Aristotle, Dweck. Questions, comments? Questions, comments? Anything in your tummy? Anything that comes up at all? Anything that comes up at all? I want to hear something, please. If you're bored in your class, if you find your class difficult, you think that your teacher's a dope and is boring. Teacher may be a dope. Teacher may be boring. You're the one's got to find the meaning. You've got to find purpose and meaning in what you're doing. If Frankl can find meaning in a concentration camp, you can find meaning in a college. Got it? Yes.
You said Dweck doesn't explain how to reach.
She explains how. She doesn't explain. She doesn't explain. She doesn't tell us what we're growing toward.
Well, like, wouldn't everybody be growing towards something different, even though if it is, it's like.
Yes, 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 you're right. She can't tell us what you should grow toward. Neither can Aristotle. You're right. We all are taking different pathways. What Aristotle is saying, whatever pathway you develop, organize it around some form of moral goodness. Okay, so for you, moral goodness might be being compassionate and helping people. And so that maybe you become a physician. And through becoming a physician, you're able to create that moral goodness. For someone else, moral goodness, seriously, could be excellence in playing golf.
Wait, so does that like tie into what we're doing now with like self-interest, eating? You know,
You keep going. Yes. I just erased the board so that I can tie it into what we're doing now. So do it. You got it. You've got it.
The like self-interest being like how we're learning about how our like sorry, I'm stuttering.
It's time. It's no problem. You're
Um,
going through the process of creating your understanding as you speak with help.
how somebody's self-interest can be fulfilling. So that would be like them reaching or like living a good life through those steps.
Yeah, you're doing great. You're doing great. And you've actually made me want to talk about something that we haven't talked about in order to make the point that I think that you're trying to make. I think we're going to do it. Yes, I'm going to do this. Hope it doesn't take me too far away. Hope it brings me to where I want to go. I'm taking a little bit of a chance here. So you're saying, what does this have to do with? This has something to do with how we build ourselves through our relationships to other people. Right? Now, note, you're using the term self-interest, which bears on this issue of conflict management, where people have their interests that we've been talking about, okay? Note that when I'm talking about self, I'm not necessarily talking about self-interest. We've used the word self-awareness, okay? Or just self. Second part of our course here. First part is about self-cultivation. The second part is about self-conflict and social relations, which is the idea that we develop ourselves through relationships with others. We develop ourselves through relationships with others. Now, if you go back to Dweck, she's saying the same thing. In order to develop your skills, which ultimately become who you are, your skills and abilities and beliefs and identity, you need to actually build that over time through effort and help with other people, assistance from others. We develop ourselves through other people, even in Dweck. Aristotle, we develop ourselves through other people. Virtue, the virtues are you'll see in a few minutes, are relational virtues, many of them. Compassion, okay, love, courage is even though it's an individual thing, I'm developing my courage in battle or in the workplace or what have you. We develop ourselves through our relationships with others. Let me talk about something that will bring together your question about self-interest, self and self-interest with conflict, what we've been talking about. How do we develop ourselves through relationships and through conflict? That's what I'm going to answer right now. I'm going to give a general answer to that question. And I'm going to draw on some work that I think is just some wonderful work in moral development by two people, Primer and Walker, who develop what they call a reconciliation model of moral development. You don't need it, that's not the word. The point I want to here is reconciliation, reconcile. You'll see that in just a few seconds. This is what they say. They say the development of moral development. What has Aristotle been talking about? Moral development of moral goodness, development of virtue. They say little kids, everybody, we're born, if you will, with two broad motivational systems, at least two. One is self-interest. The other is concern for others. And one can say both of these are present at birth. We ordinarily think that humans are simply self-interested beings. Simply self-interested beings. Everything is selfish. The individual is selfish, or the individual is primarily selfish or self-interested. You can make a very good case that that's not true. That indeed humans have self-interest and are self-interested, but they are also concerned about others. Self-interest you can find very simple. You get a newborn baby. Baby is crying. Why is the baby crying? Because the baby's hungry. Baby wants food, wants milk, wants the bottle, wants the breast. You give the baby milk. Baby's happy. Self-interest. Simple. It might be a little bit more difficult to see examples of concern for others, but it happens. And it even happens right from birth. If you have a baby in a hospital room and other babies begin to cry, quite often the baby who's not crying cries. Or if that baby's crying, the crying exacerbates. Some people suggest that that is a forerunner or form of empathy. Okay, that I'm hearing the other baby cry, and that's creating a sense of crying in myself or sadness in myself or what have you. That's the forerunner or an early version of empathy. And it doesn't take very long. By 8 months of age, even 6 months, even earlier, if somebody else is crying, babies will look at that other person who's crying. That's interesting to them. They don't like it. They don't like it. If even prior to 1 year of age with sophisticated kids, if I drop something, I'm looking around, some kids will come, pick it up and give it to me. Even before a year of age, they begin to engage in helping behavior. By a year and a half, if they see another baby in pain, maybe they're going to try to comfort the baby by a year and a half. They may give the baby a teddy bear, the other person who's crying. Concern for others. It's there from the start, just as self-interest is there from the start. Except you can only have one or the other. Can't have self-interest and concern for the self at the same time at this time of age. You don't have it. So if I'm crying because I'm hungry, it's going to be very, very difficult for me to care about your hunger. But if I'm satiated and you're crying, I don't have any pressing needs at this point when I'm a baby. I might, many might, not all, show concern for the other person. So you've got self-interest here and concern for the other, but they're separate. You understand? They occur in different situations. They occur in different situations. I'm either self-interested or I am concerned for others, but not both at the same time. Then something interesting happens. Kids developing. Let's say, I don't know, 7 years of age. I'll make it up. You got a kid playing with a toy. Okay? Or let's say, here I am. This kid's playing with the toy. And this kid takes the toy. Now I've got the toy. Why did I take the toy? I took the toy out of self-interest. I want the toy. Well, then what happens? The baby this one starts to cry. Or gets mad, takes the toy back, he yanks the toy back. And then maybe mom or dad comes in and says, you know what? If you take the toy from him, he's not going to want to play with you. Or mom and dad come in and say, how would you feel if somebody took the toy from you? Now what's happening? Now it's happening. The kid has self-interest. Kid has self-interest. I want the toy, but also can begin to see that the other kid is not happy. And what happens is you've got a conflict. You got a conflict. The kid has two things in mind at once. Couldn't do that earlier, but as the kid's getting older, now I've got this conflict. I have my self-interest. I also care about you, but I don't know how to reconcile those. I have those two. Here, they're just separate. Now, around 7, 8, older, I begin to see, I care about you and I care about me, but I don't know what to do about that. I don't know how to solve this problem. And then what Primer and Walker said, I find to be just so fascinating, is at this point, as more development happens, it's got a choice. I can develop in the direction of self-interest. How do I resolve this dilemma? You'll see that this is going to be very related to what we've talked about in class. How do I resolve this dilemma between self-interest and concern for others? Well, I can push away the other person and I can develop in the direction of self-interest. One possibility. Or I can become a Wall Street banker and not care about other people. Just care about the money I get. Or I can push myself away and just be concerned about the other person. Okay? Concern for others. I become Mother Teresa, if you will, or some selfless clergy person or some such altruistic somebody who sacrifices him or herself for other people. Or I can bring these two things together and coordinate and reconcile them such that it becomes part of my self-interest to care about you. It becomes part of my self-interest to care about you. So in other words, how I come to define who I am is through you, or at least in part in terms of my concern or care for you. So if I'm a business person, I do not simply go into business to make money, self-interest, although that is certainly something that I'm going to need, is self-interest and money. And that's one of the reasons I'm in business, maybe the primary reason I'm in business. But there are other reasons I'm in business, that you come into my store and I get to know you and I want to give you the best service I possibly can. Why do I want to give you the best service I possibly can? Well, I'm concerned about how you think about me and my reputation. And if I have a good reputation, I'm going to get more business, but not just that, but also because I care about you as a person, even an anonymous person coming in. And I want you to, I want to meet your needs as a person, and that I feel good about who I am when I act out of love and concern for you. So Marshall Rosenberg says, people like nothing better than to contribute to the well-being of each other. And so I build my business. My business is, I feel good about it because I am contributing directly to society in a positive way. I want to be able to do good. I want to be able to improve people's lives. And I've got part of my identity is tied up with you. Back to the idea that we develop ourselves through relationships with others. And here's an example of how we develop ourselves through conflict with others. That when I see that my needs conflict with your needs, I have a problem. When I see that my needs conflict with your needs, I have a problem. And I can solve that problem in many ways. I can say, go away, you, I'm just going to focus on me. I can say, go away, self, I'm going to focus on you. Or I can find some way to reconcile or integrate self-interest with others. It's not bebopping back and forth between self-interest and others. It's more, it is part of who I am to care about you. An ethic of care. Think of a mother. And I use that term deliberately. You know, a mother and what it means to be maternal. And quite often, mothers often have a problem, if you will, that they are erring on this side, if you will, if you want to use the word err, more concerned for others, and they may be sacrificing themselves. The father, the businessman, the traditional father, if you will, is erring on this side. And you could be anywhere along this continuum, and we can have discussions about what it means to be a mother, what it means to be a father, and what it would look like if this were more coordinated and not in one direction or another direction, and even whether that's a good thing or not a good thing. Yep. We develop through our relations. Through this conflict, and if I'm able to reconcile this is my moral self right here. Here's the moral self. Here's moral goodness right here. I'm going to act out of love for you and love for me. That is a virtuous self. What's your version of the virtuous self that you're developing toward? How does that feel insofar as, can you see our stuff on conflict? And can you see our stuff on the development of self in this? The idea that I am developing through you, Ubuntu. I am developing through you. I am because we are. We develop through our relationships. You can't get here by yourself. You can't get there by yourself. Right? You need the person that you're interacting with. Have compassion. When I say that, work hard, be courageous, be thrifty, be loving, love others, love yourself. This is what it means to love yourself. These are all words, people. These are words. So that when erase this now. I'm going to try to connect it a little bit more to some of the other stuff we chatted about. So that if this is child, and this is an adult, teacher, more accomplished peer or something, and they're interacting, okay? I'm going to make the adult bigger because the adult knows more. And the kid is interacting, and the adult says, be compassionate. How would you feel if she took the toy from you? Or as you were skiing, I saw that when you went down the hill, your poles were too far apart. Bring your poles together. In each one of these situations, the adult is using words that have shared meanings, we've discussed. Words with shared meanings to socialize the child. As the child learns the meaning of these words and begins to identify with them, if he or she does, identify with compassionate. I should be compassionate. Or she feels bad when I take the toy. I would feel bad when you take the toy. I don't want to make her feel bad. Or I need to bring these poles together in order to ski well. We use the language to create ourselves. We use the language to create images of who we are and who we want to be. And then through slow, effortful progress, effort, and help, we create and craft new selves defined by hopefully moral goodness, values that bring new higher order selves into being. This is what I want for you. That's what the course means. That's what the whole course means for the whole year. That's it. That's the whole baby. Talk to me. Questions? Do you see? Does this help to put everything together? That's what my point is here. They put things together. Does this put things together to you? Do you have any new insights given what we've said? Do you have any comments about this? How does this make you, what does this make you think of? How does it make you feel? What have you learned over the course of this year? Does this help you put it together? Anything at all? What's in yourself? What comes up? Anything at all? Thoughts now. Thoughts now. Do you have something? Okay, take your time. Take it. You can think. You can think. Go ahead.
I feel like not just learning that, but like all the reading and writing we've done has helped us a lot. And just like everything, reading and writing, that's very important.
Reading and writing, all the reading and writing we've done has helped you a lot. In this class, we've done a lot of reading and writing. In this class, we've done a lot of reading and writing in ways that probably pushed you past your comfort zone, maybe even pissed you off once in a while, thought it was tedious. It might not have felt good to think, thought I knew how to write really well, but now I see that I have more to go with reading and writing. Everybody knows how to read. Wait a second, I'm not quite sure I knew how to read well as I need to read. We did all this stuff. You're saying that was important. That was important for many reasons. It was important because it helped you develop reading skills and writing skills. It was important that by developing those reading and writing skills, you got some certain content from the books that you were reading. But there was something more important to it. There's something more important to it. By learning higher ways of reading and writing and note-taking, when you thought you already knew it, and when you thought, when it could feel like we're going to fix mindset, when it could feel like you're a bad person or that you're stupid if you didn't have certain reading, writing, note-taking skills, to confront that and face the idea that, wait a second, maybe my reading and writing and note-taking skills are not the way I had thought or wanted them to be, that could be very threatening. That can be very threatening. I suggest to you that it is through the very learning of these reading and writing and note-taking skills, through being kind of directed through them over the course of the class, in the actual interaction, when you get frustrated, and when somebody helps you through that, that's where the self is created. That's where the new self is created. In that very process. In the very process of looking at the text, thinking I get it, being shown I didn't, pushing it away, coming back to it, having somebody help you work through it, feeling good about it, and then saying, oh my God, I can do this. And if you can take that and apply that to your life, you'll be unstoppable. So something that seems as trivial and mundane as reading and writing and note-taking is not. Everything that you do, you're building new skills. Everything. And you're going to continue, hopefully, throughout the rest of your life. It doesn't stop here. Certainly didn't stop in high school. You don't want it to stop. you want it to be, you want to be continually cultivating yourself. You're never done cultivating yourself, which doesn't mean you got to wait till you die to be happy. You can be happy at any point as long as you realize, look, I'm on the right path. I'm doing good. Look at the good I did today. Look at how much I came from yesterday. Yes.
Like, so are you still saying that other people can like cultivate us stuff?
Absolutely.
But it like, isn't it a growth mindset? You're not like supposed to let people cultivate?
Let's look at the way you asked the question. Do other people cultivate us? This says self-cultivation. Okay, we are cultivating ourselves. Erase the other thing. Erase the other thing that says we develop through relationships. Let's augment this. This is good. I don't know if I've ever said it in this particular way. Probably, I don't know, but this is the whole baby. Self-cultivation through relationships. Okay? Or even more, moral self-cultivation through relationships. That's the theme of these two courses together. We cultivate ourselves, but we never cultivate ourselves by ourselves. We cultivate ourselves through relationships. And we cultivate a moral self through relationship. And if you cultivate moral selves through relationships and continue to cultivate them and act upon the moral selves that you have created, you will be happy and you will do good, even when there is pain and suffering. Now, you asked the question, do other people cultivate us? It's the question you asked, okay? Do other people cultivate us? Here. Look. Here's self. Do I cultivate myself? Or do other people cultivate us? No.
Is it like the way you like take things? Like say if someone said something negative to you and you could like turn it around and be like, oh, I can do this.
Yes.
Oh, they got it.
Yes. We are always cultivating ourselves through the other. It's a relational process. It's not something that comes from the inside out. I'm just doing it myself. And it's not something that comes from the outside in. Somebody else is cultivating me. It's in the relation itself. It's in the very relation itself where myself is my moral self is being cultivated in our relationship. And that doesn't mean that I become everything, that you become everything I tell you. Doesn't mean that. You could reject me. The act of rejecting me is cultivating you through me. The act of accepting something I'm saying is cultivating you through me. The act of taking a part of what I'm saying and pushing something else aside is you cultivating yourself through the relationship. And you got to know who you ought to be having relations with in order to cultivate yourself and who is not. And in college, it's the same thing, right? I mean, not all courses are the same. When I tell people, you're never taking a course, you're taking a course from that person at that time with the rest of these people. Who's doing the teaching matters. Who you are matters. You're developing through your relationships. Yes?
Okay, I don't know if this is like gonna be good, like what we have right now, but is this second essay one that's too like, is that gonna be about like the relation between like obviously what we talked about? Like,
Yes.
the first semester for this?
Well, you've already got that essay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could see it. Yeah. It's yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah. So if you will, I just gave you the answer to the second essay. Or part of it. You can, there's 1,000 ways to write that. There's 1,000 ways to write that. This is one. I won't say much more than that. I didn't give you the answer to the essay. I gave you a structure for thinking about how you're going to answer, how you can answer that essay. Other questions or comments, whatever comes up. Whatever comes up, please. Yes.
Like back to the well, going to like process, like reaching a trillios or happiness, like
Kilos.
kilos. Well, once you get there, can't you always be happier? Like, can't you always
Once you get where?
to your end goal, your trillion
He'd say telos.
kilos?
Telos. Once you get to your telos, can you always get happier? Can anybody answer that question? Can anybody answer that question? To answer the question, you have to understand that something about the question. What do you got, Michael? That's the answer. The answer is you can't get to your telos. You understand? The telos is a guide post. It says work toward that. And guess what? Over the course of your life, you can also change your telos. Oh, I thought this was the good, when really this is the good. You're constantly changing the conception of where it is that you're going as you reflect and get better and more interesting and more developed. You see? But the point is, can I become more happy and more content? You bet. That's part of the developmental, that's part of this developmental process. But that doesn't mean you wait till you get to the point. You never get to the point, right? You never get to the point. You only get closer, maybe. And then you have to see, you have to savor that closeness. That's what I'm saying. And the happiness comes from the judgment that I have, that this is the good that came out of what I've done. This is the good. Here's the new self, and it is good, which requires that we think about why it's good. Okay? For some of us, it is worth risking broken bones to take motorcycles and jump over things. And it is good, the goal to be and to have excellence in that is the moral good that you're moving toward. Other people might say, I don't want to break my bones. I want to do something else. Or the person who's jumping the motorcycles at some point might say, yeah, I'm getting too old for this. I need something else. The telos is now changed. But the fact that you're going to do that with excellence is the moral goal. And you feel good when you've done something with excellence. And you might not feel so good if it's not so excellent, but you can also look at that and say, wait a second, there's always forward movement and backward movement. This is part of the process of who I'm becoming, and you can be accepting with that as well. Something else I wanted to say, but I lost it. Yes?
I like the future that's like around like the top is like telos, like and those are specific things that make you happy along the way. Or like how those are like the little things, like when you see how far you come, kind of those things be like negative things that you don't like see in the moment. So like that, and maybe
I didn't understand the negative part. What's the negative part?
you said those were all like points that make you.
I said that telos is like a guidepost. It says, go here, move toward this. You never get there. That's what I'm saying. Along the way, you don't have to wait to the end of your life for happiness. It's right now. How is it right now? This is what defines what the good is. You got it? I'm here, never going to get here. But then I go here. Okay? Got a little closer. I see that good. I experience that good. I feel good, happy in the moment about that good. And that good could be anything. That good could be anything. It could be, and I'm not kidding. Remember we talked about them kicking the ball, right? Is there anything good about this, people? Anything good about that? Is there anything good about this? Or if there's a ball there, anything good about that? Anything good about that just itself? Forget about getting into the net, forgetting about winning a game. Anything good about this?
No.
Anybody else? I got 3 no's.
Be fun.
It'd be fun. Think of a baby. Think of a baby. Baby's got none of this moral self, but runs joyfully down the hallway for no other reason than the joy of running. It is good. The simple joy of running is good. You know what the simplest, most joyful thing is? Anybody? What's the simplest, most joyful thing that you always have, that you can always go back to when everything is horrible? The most basic thing. What's the most basic thing about what it means to be a human or an organism? Anybody?
Eat.
Before eating, what do we do to live? What's the most basic function that we're doing to live? Say it. Breathing, 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 breathing. See, you said that. I knew it. You didn't say it because you didn't want to look stupid, right? Should have said it, right? Breathing, breathing. The concept of a soul comes from breath. All right, think for a moment. Breathing. Breathing is good. Imagine what's our most horrible fear? Suffocation. The idea of not being able to breathe is terrifying. And the act of breathing feels so good. The most basic act that is involved in being alive has goodness built right in it. You see, you don't have to wait for some highfalutin telos. All along the way, there's good. There's good to savor. You even say that there's excellence in breathing. You can actually cultivate excellence in breathing. It's called yoga. Got it? Excellent questions. All right, so go cultivate thyself. Go cultivate thyself. Thank you.